But yeah, part of it is you guys being here with us.
There you
so
go.
Thanks
All
so
right.
much.
This is massive news for our channel. And if you guys have followed us for any length of period of time, one of the people that have helped us grow is Jetoptera. We did a video on them early on, about 3 months ago. And since that, we've hooked up with a couple of the people in our organization, and one of them being Todd Newton. Now, Todd Newton's a great guy. And yesterday, as news broke of something that was very important to the corporation, he called me directly. And he said, hey, I got some news for you, and we want you guys to know about it so you didn't miss it. And what that is that basically Jetoptera has been what they call down selected, which means they've made it into another round of the U.S. Air Force High-Speed Vertical Takeoff and Landing Concept Showcase. Okay, and this is actually part of what is considered, all right, the AFWERX, or Air Force Works, which is part of the HSVTOL project, which basically people put in submittals, and then they basically get whittled down to who actually makes the final concept. Now, here's one of the major pieces of news that he wanted to share, though, as well. One thing that I look forward to in bringing to you all the new information about EVs, flying technology, and so on and so forth is who's they're partnered with and what do we think their chances are of making it, because this is a fledgling market that's attracting billions of dollars. Well, also, the cat's out of the bag now that Jetoptera has also announced that they are collaborating with, among others that we've already said before, like Honeywell and other companies, Northrop Grumman. Okay, now, this is massive news, because what's already not in the face value of this conversation, which means you have an eVTOL company that's going to debut and push their technology out through a different, showcase of basically the others of Archer and Joby, which is going directly after the commercial market. These guys are going after a part of the military stake, right? So what does that mean in the other part of the conversation? Well, when you say high-speed VTOL, that means generally we're talking about something that could be above 200 miles an hour, which is something that none of these other VTOL companies are really talking about. And we're also talking about using the FPS, their fluidic propulsion system. So this is huge, okay? It's because this also means that amongst the other contracts that they were selected for from the Air Force and going into the anechoic chamber with the Army and the Air Force and proving that their fluidic propulsive system is actually quieter than anything else known to man at the time, the company that they're with in this challenge, and we can take a look at that right now, is pretty massive and pretty good company. Okay, so if you go into the actual AFWERX challenge and log yourself in like we did, you can see the companies like Raytheon and others that have already submitted some things along the lines to be considered as part of this competition. Okay, and we've been taking a look at some of them, and they're pretty amazing, but this is huge because the partnerships that they're announcing for Jetoptera means that their chances of success, Northrop Grumman just doesn't throw their name out to anyone in the industry unless they see that there's some sort of promise, especially in a smaller company like Jetoptera, to have Northrop Grumman kind of attach themselves to that's huge. So, and I think it bolsters kind of the conversation that Corey and I have been having a long time now that says that don't look for these guys to be going after $2.2 billion SPAC funds and think that because they haven't done that they're not worthy of an investment, because they're doing it from a traditional manner, which means they're going to grow this technology in the military and then bring it out to the marketplace, just like helicopters were delivered to aviation as a standard going back to the 1970s. They're doing their homework and they're going about it a different way. So what's your thoughts on this one, Corey? Because this got me way excited, especially to hear it directly from Todd, but also to hear that they're in this phase of quote unquote high speed, whichever that means.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, again, as Mike has mentioned, we've been following Jetoptera for a long time, and then ended up kind of getting in contact with them. And it's just kind of been interesting to obviously keep track of all the VTOLs in the market and everything that's going on, but then also try to keep track of Jetoptera. And it's really cool that we have the contact there to just chat with. And as far as this news here, of course, I don't know if you just want to pick a few things out of the actual press release from Jetoptera here, but you guys, we did mention that there were 218 entries in this round of the Air Force Works Challenge. 35 of them were selected. Of course, Jetoptera is in there as well, as we just talked about. And then, yeah, obviously the big thing up there with partner with Northrop Grumman up there. And there's a little thing from the CEO, Andre, there talking about that as well. And so, yeah, just again, to kind of come back around to where Mike was talking about that Jetoptera doesn't, unless you're like looking for the news for a company like this,
no,
they're not in the news as much. Like there's a lot of companies like, there's Joby and there is Lilly, and we'll get to them as well. And there's a lot of those companies in the news, and they're promoting themselves in many places. and they are doing things with like rotors, ducted fans, other things like that. And everybody's aware that you need to be quiet. Noise is a big hurdle and a big challenge for VTOLs going forward. And we've already seen a lot of things from Jetoptera really addressing that, and seen some things, as Mike mentioned, there's been some studies done with the Army and the Air Force earlier that said that Jetoptera was up to 30 decibels, maybe more, quieter than everybody else, and that's pretty crazy. And pretty cool. Thinking again about what the name really talks about, this particular category the Air Force works, it's a high-speed vertical takeoff and landing concept. So the Air Force is looking for vertical takeoff and landing vehicles that now can be quiet, right? Let's think about that. So obviously they want to be quiet, and they already said high speed. Okay, so as Mike mentioned, just kind of elaborate on the high speed part. What's already out there that they could use? Let's think of things like the Osprey, the Chinook, other things that are already out there, proven. If you think of something like Chinook, we're talking like 200 knots or so. No. It's not slow. But it's still vertical takeoff and landing. Obviously, it's got 2 rotor systems on top if you're not aware. Okay, fine. So this kind of speaks to me to say they're looking for something more than that, faster than that. And so now I'm thinking to myself, okay, it's definitely going to be over 200 knots. It's going to be quieter than everything else.
There's a couple others.
And as some of the people in the chat have already mentioned, in a way that they will not have any exposed rotating components, which also leads, so a little bit extra safety for not just people around the vehicle itself, but also less ability for you to bump into something, as we'd say, and then have some damage to like the part, your lifting components that you don't want to be damaged at all.
So there's a couple other things here, though.
It is. So for me, it's pretty exciting.
There's a couple other things, though. There's now, so here's a couple other things that they're placed in this category. Capabilities desired, which is aerodynamic efficiency to maximize range, right? Which when I look at Jetoptera, they fit that part of the category, right? Functionality to allow desired internal or external cargo and capacity attributes to meeting mission objectives. Well, because they don't have that rotating mass and vibrations, and because they can centrally mount their propulsive unit someplace else, that opens them up to a little bit more, right? Integrated HSVTOL conceptual solution capable of meeting mission objectives. Well, that's something to be looked at. But there's others here. Advanced propulsive technologies are some things that they're looking at. They're also looking at, down here, if you look, they're looking at alternative energy sources, anti-gravity, electric and battery technology, engines and turbines, rotors, thrusters, turbojets, but also hovering and vertical takeoff and landing with benign downwash. Okay. Which is, if you're talking about VTOL technologies, that's a big statement in and of itself, right? So there's so many things here that actually Jetoptera caters towards being not evolutionary, but revolutionary. And now if we're finding out that a plus 200 mile an hour speed or 200 knot speed is capable from their technology, you've got a game-changing additive there that makes them applicable to a lot more commercial markets when they finally do make the jump out of the military, right? So,
yeah. And I guess that for me too, it's exactly like as you were saying earlier about going military first, then commercial. And so kind of looking at this, in a way, the writing's on the wall, at least for me, in a way that they're obviously going after military stuff, which is obvious here, right? But they also, that being said, I could think that we wouldn't see, we may not see something come to the commercial market as quickly, right? They're probably going to focus on this, which they should, of course. Focus on this, and then as far as the commercial market, the public market, we might be a bit more time before we really get to see what's going on there. The other thing to maybe note, if you're not familiar with the Air Force Works Challenge, it's going to be the next thing that they do. They're going to be going to Vegas and talking to some actually military officials over there to present their talk and their technology in person over there. But it's not a public thing. So that's maybe the other thing to know is we'll keep following what we can follow, but there's only so much we're even going to know about what's going on as a public
speculation,
entity. So
right? But there's speculation though, and I will say that you can speculate at this point that they obviously have probably more going on than we would know. So that's for sure.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, yeah, of course. You would want to keep your keep your cards close, as you would say, in poker or something, especially with something like this. Not just because you're in a competition with other companies, but because you wouldn't want your technology that's proproprietary to get out.
Well, and I think that speaks to their
we could be
right. And well, I also think that speaks to their quietness about how the fact that they've released developmental videos so that we know that it flies, we know that it works without question. The second part of it is that's also why you're not going to see massive breakthroughs and dog and pony shows all over the place, because they're going about this a different way. So don't expect the traditional, here's our beautiful aircraft and this is what it's going to look like and this is what it's going to do for you, because you're not going to get that in this environment, at least not yet, because they're probably way more successful than anyone knows right now. Okay, so just that's what I'll say. But also, just in the comments that we've been tracking this for a while, and Corey said it. Too loud is going to be a problem. Exposed moving parts. Okay, too much to maintain. Vertical flight has been one of the hardest things that mankind has ever embarked on, in a traditional sense of the technology that it's taken to master. Okay, vertical or hovering flight and remain stationary or remaining on scene for whatever reason has never been easy, and because you're having to take so many forces and transmit them literally into beating the air to submission. That's what happens, right? So again, for these guys to be making this type of leap forward in technology, and I do say leap forward because I never saw it coming in this form or fashion, and to see how now that they're even progressing beyond what I really thought would be, well, where they are right now. I didn't know that they were going this far this fast. Congratulations to them. So, and look, we've also talked to them, and look, Andre's really hot to get on the show. So is Todd. They want to come on. They want to talk. We have to look at the same point. They've got a lot of busy work to do because they're a small shop. They don't have a ton of people right now because they're in development phases. Okay. And their people are working diligently to get this done. So, and we admire the fact that they reach out whenever they can to give us information. That's awesome. And that's huge. But they have personally said that, hey, we're welcome to come out, but the problem is they're too busy. I said,
yeah, that's
fair enough.
Fair enough. I mean, that makes total sense, right? So we will, we'll do what we can for you guys here to say what we can say, of course, and keep you guys up to date with what we can. We're certainly excited to see what comes out of them, and as we've kind of said before, it's just a different kind of way, right? You can't go into, as it would be. I was on LinkedIn earlier, and there's stuff about Joby and Lilium all over the place, and they're very planned out photo shoot pictures, if you know what I mean, right? And not that that's bad. It's
right, of course,
good PR. But it's just interesting to see that Jetoptera's putting all their thought into something.
Yeah, it is
something else. And for what it's worth, guys, if you are interested to kind of keep track on your own to help them out, I did put a link down there. And full disclaimer, again, we're not getting paid anything for this. I'm just letting you guys know because we're trying to have a little bit more of a spin of like investing on the channel and stock stuff because it helps with the algorithm for YouTube, just so you know why. But down there is a link to the funding page for Jetoptera.
Now the other part, well, we have to say this, if you haven't watched our previous videos, we've been showcased on their WeFund. A few times,
that too.
Right?
Yeah, but I mean, we received no monetary benefit.
So it's funny because we were doing a piece, and you can go back and look at the archives of our material. And one day we were like, hey, they went and started a WeFund, and we're like, hey, go look at the updates. And live on air, we found out that they were showcasing our videos.
Yeah, we were just there. We're like, oh, look, they got a funder, and we're looking around like, dude, that's us.
Hey,
that's us.
Like, subscribe, follow. There's more to come from Jetoptera, and we're going to keep hot on this conversation with them. So there's that. Now, I also want